Hey guys, how's it going? So today I am going to talk about the chemise and the corded corset, which is actually underneath this. I wanted to talk about the chemise first because it's the thing that you should arguably sew first. So that's why it's on top of the corset instead of underneath the corset, but also so I can show it off, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see it very well. Anyway, I was going to talk about making that and then do a review on the pattern I use, which is the Laughing Moon, Mercantile, Ladies, Regency, and Romantic Area Corset, long and short versions. Looks like this. And also the video tutorial classes that Jennifer Rosbrugh has on her website, which I will link down below to her general list of classes. This one is called Regency Corset and Chemise. Weirdly, the chemise isn't actually like discussed on the naming of this pattern, even though there's a chemise in here. I have notes on my phone, so I will be looking at my phone. Sorry if people can't stand that, but that's how I remember things. The chemise took me, looks like 8 hours to make. I did this over the course of 2 days. I did almost all of it and then just the hem and this binding on the second day because I had to go to Joann and it was like 2 a.m. So let's go over the pattern for the chemise first. This is what I have written down. Given that it's a gusset, the instructions were adequate but not fantastic. The instructions for the gusseting tell you to clip the gusset. I would have probably gone with like, or they say, no, I'm sorry, they say notch the gusset. I would have gone with clip it, just so that you understand and like maybe shown a drawing of that. They don't really go over that. And if you have never done gussets before, that's kind of a nightmare, which is why Jennifer's class was awesome for that. Other than that, the pattern is simple and functional and a great way to learn about gussets because the shirt itself is not very complicated. So the hardest thing about it essentially is the gusseting and arguably this casing, which wasn't actually that hard. There were weird clips that you had to make right here and in the back, but then they were listed as 5/8 clips. So I clipped down here and clipped down here. I talked about this in my blog a little bit. The problem with that is she tells you to do a 1/4 inch binding, which you can't do if you have a 5/8 inch clip because, you know, 3/8 of that would be hanging out, like just exposed clip out. I don't know. Anyway, so what I did, and Jennifer has a different solution to this, which is she just made a binding that was 5/8 inch, which that was too much for me. This is a 1/2 inch binding, and I just used binding that you buy at the store, double fold bias tape binding. So I actually just chopped off like half of it, so probably 1/4 to 3/8 of the piece that was there that was clipped down on both sides. I just notched it down a little bit and made that happen so that I could get this in. Same with the back. The back looks like this, and you run this lacing all the way around so that you can gather it up all the way around, which is really cool and useful. But I would have never known how to miter the corners of this if I was trying to bind all the way around. I don't know how I would have done that given that pattern. So having Jennifer's class was really, really useful for that. What I have to say about her class was that it was really mostly awesome. It was really helpful to see how the gussets went in, and also this binding definitely was useful because she showed you how to miter the corners in order to be able to have it go all the way around. Otherwise I probably would have done each part, like on a corset I would have done each part separately, and then you couldn't have gone all the way around with it. She does skip the first two. The gusset is this thing right here. She talks about flat felling it all the way up and then flat felling this one all the way down, but she doesn't talk about these two flat fells. And they're actually kind of complicated, and I wish she had talked about them in her video series. That probably would have made things just a smidge easier for me. So that is my review on the pattern for this guy, and I will go ahead and take this off and then come back at you with the corset review. Okay, this is what the corded corset looks like. I will be putting in closer shots of this as I talk, just for your edification, so you can see what it looks like closer up. The reason these straps are so far apart, they will get tied with ribbons, but also Brunhilde is a uniquely you, but she's not actually uniquely me. Her shoulders are significantly higher than mine are, as compared to where my bust points are. So actually really what it is my bust points are slightly higher than this mannequin's are. So this is what it looks like all the way around, and again I will insert some better clips for you in just a moment. This did take me 40.5 hours. People were like, whoa, you're so fast. I'm like, no, I just had many hours each day. I sewed well into the evening a bunch of days. So there's that. I guess first thing I was going to talk about is things I learned. The first thing they tell you is to use 18 to 22 needles. They look like this. I went ahead and got doll needles, which as you can see are significantly larger. This needle, this doll needle, is amazing for doing cording because, like, as you can see, it gets through all these cords with no problem, and you can go pretty far in these. So I didn't actually have to use my pliers very much, which was really nice. The second thing I learned about was a fine tip water soluble marker. This is awesome because it's a very fine tip. It draws nice, neat little lines. I put a bunch of pictures of them up on my Instagram. I'll insert those here so you can see what those lines look like. To be fair, I went over those lines about 4 times each to get them that dark. What I would say is don't do that. First of all, you don't need them that dark. I just have never done this before, so I'm not very skilled at it yet, basically. And that actually caused a bit of a problem because when I squirted water on it, it just sort of made the blue would disappear, but then it would come back and it would have spread more. So the third thing I learned about is hydrogen peroxide. This is water in this thing, but I put hydrogen peroxide in one of these. I started out like rubbing it on with like some Q-tips. Nah, whatever. Get a spray bottle, put your hydrogen, and make sure it's not clear. Put your hydrogen peroxide in there and just squirt it, and it goes away and it never comes back. So if you ever have problems with those water soluble markers, use hydrogen peroxide. There's a bunch of other methods that people have suggested. I tried a bunch of them. The hydrogen peroxide worked the fastest and the best so far. The keeping of the ribbon in this channel, so you sew this ribbon right here, and then it just scrunches just this part up, so it's different than the chemise is. And you sew this down like while the channel's open, and then you have to thread it through and then sew the binding on. And that was actually kind of difficult to keep the ribbon in because my ribbon is so narrow. It just kept wanting to jump over to the back because the binding was rolling towards the back. So that was a little bit harder than I expected. I learned that white heart corsets are hard to keep clean when you're cording them. Lastly, I expected it to take longer. It did take 40.5 hours, but I did expect it to take longer. Victorian takes me about 40 hours, and Edwardian took me about 40 hours, so I don't know why I thought it would take me longer. I thought the cording would be significantly harder than it was, and actually that wasn't the problem. The problem is always the hand sewing for me. I'm so slow. So anything like where I'm hand sewing this binding on, it's gonna take a while for me especially. So let's talk about this pattern. I would say that the measurement for the boning was way off. She had the measurements in there for an unaltered corset, and I made this completely unaltered. Like I didn't have to do any pattern adjustments to it, which was really awesome. So she sizes up really well. So if you're not a small person, this is a great pattern. It also, I was in the middle, and as you can see, I'm not a tiny person, and I was in the middle of probably the like a top third of the sizes, but there was plenty of sizes larger than me. So if you are a larger lady or gentleman, this is definitely a corset that will fit you. And they size up really well and they seem to fit really good. She said though that the boning, if it was unaltered, would be this length, and it absolutely was not. So I pulled out a bunch of boning and then I was like, no, that's not right. So don't just buy mindlessly the boning, like wait, and then if you have to order it, go ahead and measure and then order it. I had a bunch sitting around, so I used that. The corset measurements were spot on though, like this fit me out of the gate. You do need to pay very careful attention to the instructions on this pattern. There's really major things that are only one sentence. And then there are things that are actually really easy, but she goes on and on and on and on and on about how to do them. So I would say that the instructions are a bit like kind of random, and it depends on who you are and how you learn, probably how that matters. But I would say pay attention to every part of it. She will just gloss over the fact that you need to put grommets here and here. So I might have done a smaller binding up here. I did a 1/2 inch here. I did a 1/4 inch all the way around these straps here and at the bottom, but this top I did a 1/2 inch on her recommendation. I might have just done a 1/4 inch and not done these eyelets because they're kind of ugly, and I would have just done maybe a slit with my buttonhole tool. That might have worked out next time, maybe. I would say that the sizes are color coded on the pattern though, and so that's really awesome. When you have to cut weird curves and stuff, you can just follow your color. So that's, I really appreciated that. I wish the big three would color code their patterns like that instead of just having a million black lines. Okay, so the Jennifer Rosbrugh class. The eyelet tutorial was super helpful. I've never sewn eyelets before. I could have always, of course, looked that up on the internet, and I kind of did by using her class. That was super, super helpful. It was really great to watch her do this ahead of time and then while I was doing it, and also be able to read because she has great handouts that have pictures in them, and that's very helpful when you're doing something super new like this. Well, it was really new to me. She does not demo every single thing, just so you know. She demos only the important bits. And also you should remember when you're looking at her video pages that some video pages, like each lesson, has at least one video, but it may have two. So frequently I got messed up because I would run through her video series and just watch the video and then move to the next page. There was another video there that was explaining something else. So later I'd be like, I don't really understand how to do that. Nobody went over that, but she did actually. It's just below. So her class was excellent. I would absolutely recommend it for both the chemise and for this corset if you've never made a corded corset before. I did deviate from the pattern in a couple of different ways. A friend of mine, Claudine, had her busk entrance was up here, so I put mine up here and the pattern calls for it at the bottom. Now that I see that this bow goes here and there's a lot of tension put on this spot, it makes this binding sort of flip up a little bit, and I don't really like that. So I'll probably just put a pin in it later, or like whip stitch it down and then unwhip stitch it if I have to take the busk out to wash it. I'm hoping I don't have to do that often anyway. I would have possibly done that differently next time. I just thought having the busk opening in the bottom was just like a weird concept. Like, why would you want it, like it could just slide out? It kind of can't. The binding would hold it, but I saw hers and I wanted that, so I did that. And that is deviating from the pattern, and I don't think I would have done that next time. I also put the grommets in backwards, by the way. Well, at least here. The rest of them are in the correct side. There'll be a ribbon going over this, so I don't think it really matters that much though. I'm very, very happy with this pattern. I'm very, very happy with the class the online class. Also, it didn't take super long to watch all those videos to learn how to do this. I mean, each one is like, I think the longest one was possibly 20 minutes. That was, and it was necessary to be 20 minutes, but everything else you can just watch your video for 5-10 minutes and then go ahead and do the step, which was really lovely. So I think this corset is beautiful. I am really happy with the way it turned out. I got my gussets in just great. So I'm generally happy with it. I'm pretty proud of this corset, given that it was my first time trying one of these corded corsets. There are things that I might do differently next time. Oh, also, I kind of wish that I had done the lines are on the inside. When I drew my blue lines, I drew them on the inside because it was really hard to see the pattern through coutil. I did make this out of coutil, even though she says don't do that. It was actually fine. So the lining is just muslin, and I made the lines on the inside because it was easiest to trace through. But now that I see my bobbin thread, I did a sample and I thought it was fine. Long term, I wasn't that happy with it. Although you can't really see them at this point now that all the cording's in, so I was a little like, oh no, when it happened. But now that all the cords are in, it's actually totally fine. I would have possibly changed it around the other way though, and done the lines on the front and just figured a way out. Like I do have a light table that I used to do it. I showed that in my vlog. And I probably would have seen if the coutil was easier to go ahead and mark on the front and then had my bobbin thread be on the back so that my thread doesn't look as good as top stitch thread. So that is the thing that I would have possibly thought about doing. So they tell you in the pattern, and everybody in the class, everything like that, they tell you, oh, don't worry about the fact that you have to poke your cording out through your material on the inside because it makes tiny little holes and stuff, and you can see them later. They said, don't worry about it, it's no big deal. And I agree, it does not affect the functionality of the corset at all. I'm just picky, I guess. I really don't like it. So I would have considered making a third layer that was a really, really thin material just to hide all that, so it could be on the very inside. And then just maybe like sewing it at the seams or just binding it in basically, so that I could have had a prettier inside. But it's the inside of a corset that goes under like at least 2 other layers of clothing, so who cares, right? I care slightly, but those are just thoughts. Anyway, I really enjoyed making this. I thought it was a great project. I'm pretty happy with it given that I did it super fast. I made this whole thing in like just a little over a week of sewing almost every night. So it actually came together really fast. This only has 3 pattern pieces on the side, plus your straps. So it's kind of NBD. It was a lot less tedious, I think, in some ways than a Victorian, and a lot more tedious in some ways because of the cording, but the cording really wasn't a big deal. So all the people who are complaining about cording, I will say, to be fair, I did not hand sew all these channels, right? You're supposed to, if you're historically accurate, hand sew all these channels. That would have been a nightmare. I probably would have failed out of this a long time ago, and it would have taken me 3 months to make this corset, so I am happy that I did it on my machine. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this review and having a look at this corset, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye guys!